The trouble began on a day Isaac Evans wished he could forget for the rest of his life. The sun hung heavy over Willow Creek, Texas, turning the air into a hot blanket that made breathing feel like work. Isaac stood outside the general store with a broom in his hands, but his eyes were locked on the new poster tacked to the sheriff's wall. It announced the Willow Creek Stampede, the biggest horse race in the county, the race Isaac had dreamed of riding in since he was a child. He knew he had no horse and no money. Still, when he saw that poster, he felt his heart jump the way it always did. Winning that race meant more than a small prize. It meant finally being seen as something other than the poor boy from the broken shack by the dry creek. It meant proving he was not invisible. For one moment in his life, he wanted the crowd to cheer for him instead of overlooking him. The sound of a carriage broke his thoughts. It was not just any carriage. It was Andrew Bailey's, the richest and cruelest man in all of Willow Creek. This black carriage shined like polished coal, pulled by two perfect bay horses that looked like they were made of silk. Everyone on the street stepped aside when Bailey arrived. They always did. Bailey climbed down, dusting off his expensive coat. His eyes landed on Isaac like a hawk spotting a mouse. A slow, hard smile spread across his face. He enjoyed moments like this. Moments where he could crush someone with nothing but his voice. "Evans," Bailey called out, making the whole street fall silent. Even the blacksmith's hammer stopped mid-swing. Isaac froze. He gripped the broom tighter. He wished he could fade into the dust at his feet, but Bailey was already walking toward him. The townspeople gathered, sensing a show. "I hear you want to race in the stampede," Bailey said loudly, "but a man cannot race without a horse." Isaac kept his eyes down. His voice came out small. "It is just a dream, sir." Bailey barked a laugh that echoed off the buildings. "Dreams are important," he said in a voice smooth as poison, "and I am a generous man." He snapped his fingers. One of his ranch hands stepped forward, leading a horse. But it was not really a horse. It was a ghost of one, skinny, scarred, limping badly with every step. The smell of infection drifted through the air. People gasped, then began to laugh. The poor animal's ribs stuck out like ladder rungs. Its coat was patchy and dull. One of its eyes was clouded. It wheezed with every breath. It looked one step away from falling over. "A gift," Bailey declared proudly, "for the boy who wants to be a hero." Laughter crashed over Isaac like a wave. It burned through him, hot and sharp. He felt small, foolish, exposed. Bailey had not given him a gift. He had given him humiliation. The ranch hand shoved the rope into Isaac's palm. The rough hemp bit into his skin. The broken horse stumbled and let out a soft cry of pain. Isaac looked into its one good eye. Deep inside, under the hurt and fear, he saw something. A spark, a stubborn will, a tiny piece of fire still alive. It was the same look Isaac saw in himself when he woke up each morning and promised to keep trying. Slowly, Isaac lifted his head. For the first time ever, he looked Andrew Bailey right in the eyes. "Thank you, sir," Isaac said quietly but without shaking. "He is a fine animal. I'll call him Rusty." The crowd exploded with laughter, but Isaac did not hear them. He touched the horse's neck gently and whispered, "Come on, boy." He walked down the dusty road with Rusty limping beside him, the laughter chasing them like a cruel shadow. When he reached home, his mother stepped outside. She saw the horse and closed her eyes. Her voice trembled with tired sadness. "Oh, Isaac, what did he do to you this time?" "He just needs a chance," Isaac said softly, but even he could feel how hopeless it sounded. That night, while Isaac was tending to Rusty in their small lean-to stable, an old man approached. His name was George Wells. He was one of the last real cowboys left in Willow Creek. A man who understood horses the way others understood books. George studied Rusty with careful, weathered hands. He checked the legs, the ribs, the teeth. His silent frown grew deeper. Then he stepped back. "Where did you get this horse?" he asked. "From Andrew Bailey," Isaac said. "He gave him to me in front of the whole town." George spit into the dirt and shook his head. "That man is a fool, because what he gave you is no ordinary broken horse." Isaac blinked. "What do you mean?" George pointed at a faint scar on Rusty's flank, a star-shaped mark hidden under his rough coat. "I know that brand," George said. "This is Storm Dancer, the fastest racer this town ever saw. He belonged to Bailey's late wife. She loved this horse with her whole heart." Isaac felt his breath catch. Storm Dancer, a legend, a champion, a horse every rancher in Texas had heard of. But how could this broken animal be him? George's voice dropped low. Bailey hated this horse after his wife passed. He tried to erase him, left him to rot. But the blood of a champion does not die. Isaac looked at Rusty with new eyes. The spark, the fire, it made sense now. And then George asked the question that changed everything. "He can be healed," George said, "but only with time and grit. The real question is, boy, do you have the heart to try?" Before Isaac could answer, a quiet voice came from the shadows. "I do." They turned. It was Sarah Bailey, the daughter of the richest man in Texas, and she was holding a small package of medicine in trembling hands. She looked at Rusty with tears in her eyes. "That horse belonged to my mother," she whispered, "and I want to help you save him." In that moment, the real story began. Isaac's life changed the moment Sarah Bailey stepped out of the shadows with that small bundle of medicine. She looked nothing like the proud daughter of the richest man in Texas. She looked scared, guilty, and determined all at once. Her hands shook as she held out the parcel. "My mother loved this horse more than anything," she said softly. "I couldn't stand by and do nothing. Please, let me help." Isaac had never heard her speak more than a few words in town. Now she stood in his doorway, offering medicine she must have stolen from her father's locked stable. It told him everything he needed to know. She wasn't like Andrew Bailey. George Wells took the package, studied the herbs and liniment inside, and nodded. "This will help," he said, "but it won't be easy, boy. Healing a horse like this takes more than medicine. It takes work. Every day, no matter how tired you are." Isaac looked at Rusty standing in the dim light, ribs showing and head hanging low. "I'll do whatever it takes," he said. And so the real battle began. Isaac woke before sunrise every morning. The air was cool and smelled of damp dirt. He mixed the oats Sarah left for him with warm water until they formed a mash. Rusty ate it slowly at first, as if he expected the food to hurt him. Isaac stayed with him, patting his neck, talking to him in a low, steady voice. "You're safe now," Isaac whispered. "We're going to fix this together." George arrived mid-morning carrying a bucket of tools and a roll of bandages. He moved slowly because of his old injury, but his hands were steady when he pressed and tested Rusty's leg. "The bone is straight," he murmured. "It healed wrong because no one cared enough to help him. But the damage can be undone." Quote, he walked Rusty into the shallow creek behind the house. The cool water ran around the horse's legs, easing the pain. Isaac walked beside Rusty every day, water splashing against his boots. "Don't let him lean," George warned. "Make him walk even and steady, slow steps. He's got to relearn how to trust that leg." It was hard work, harder than anything Isaac had done in his life. His legs ached, his back felt like iron. But he kept going, whispering to Rusty the whole time, telling him stories about his dreams and the sky and how one day they would run like the wind together. Sarah came almost every night after dark. She brought grain, clean cloth, and more medicine. She always looked over her shoulder as if she feared her father might appear at any moment. "I'm sorry for what he did," she told Isaac one night, her voice shaking. "He's not a bad man, just lost. When my mother died, part of him died too." Isaac didn't know what to say. Sarah's eyes were full of sadness, but they were also full of hope when she looked at Rusty. "Storm Dancer was the only thing that made her smile," she said. "He danced when she rode him. He was different. He felt her heart." Isaac glanced at Rusty, who was slowly beginning to lift his head a little higher each day. "Maybe he can feel ours now," Isaac said quietly. The days turned into weeks. Rusty changed little by little. His coat began to shine again instead of looking dusty and dull. His ribs softened as he gained weight. The tremble in his legs grew steady. Isaac brushed him every day until Rusty leaned into his touch and let out deep, relaxing breaths. There were setbacks. One morning, Rusty's leg swelled again because Isaac had pushed him too hard in the creek. Isaac felt crushed by guilt and sat beside the horse with his head in his hands. "I messed everything up," he muttered. George arrived, looked at the leg, and shook his head. "You're trying too hard, boy," he said. "You're fixing his leg, but not his spirit. He needs to trust himself again." So Isaac changed his routine. He spent hours simply sitting with Rusty, talking softly. He read aloud from old books. He rested his hand on Rusty's neck until the horse relaxed. Rusty's eyes changed. They were no longer dull with fear. They held a quiet fire, a spark that grew brighter by the day. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky orange, Isaac brought Rusty a fresh mash of grain. For the first time ever, Rusty lifted his head over the stall door and let out a soft whicker of greeting, a sound of trust. The sound broke Isaac's heart in the best way. He wrapped his arms around the horse's neck and felt Rusty rest his head gently against him. The bond between them had been sealed. But Willow Creek was small, and people talked. Isaac had to buy hay. He had to walk Rusty outside more often now that the leg was stronger. People saw. The laughter began again. "There goes the fool with his broken horse," one man sneered. "Think that bag of bones can race?" Isaac ignored the voices, but they stung. Rusty walked beside him, calm and steady, as if he knew exactly what the whispers were saying and refused to let them matter. Then one evening, a rancher named Henderson rode up to Isaac's home. He was stern but fair, and he looked Rusty over with sharp eyes. "You really think you're racing him?" Henderson asked. "Yes, sir," Isaac replied. Henderson pulled out a roll of money, more money than Isaac had ever held. He peeled off several bills and held them out. $100, enough to help your mother, fix your house, and buy food for months. Take it. Drop out of the race." Isaac looked at the money. His hands shook. He thought of his mother struggling to stretch every dollar, of nights they had gone hungry, of the roof that leaked every time it rained. Then he looked at Rusty. The horse met his eyes with a steady fire. That answer was all he needed. Isaac pushed the money back. "Thank you, sir. But we're not quitting." Henderson sighed and rode away, but someone else came the next day, Andrew Bailey. He rode up on his massive black stallion, towering over Isaac's small yard. His face was twisted with something darker than anger. It was fear, and pride, and pain. "You will not race that horse," Bailey said. His voice was low and dangerous. Isaac swallowed hard. "He was a gift, sir." "It was a joke," Bailey snapped. "You were supposed to fail. You were supposed to stay small, but you fixed him. You fixed what I tried to bury." He leaned close in the saddle, his eyes cold and sharp. "If you set foot on that track, I will throw you and your mother out of this land by sundown." The threat hit Isaac like a punch. He thought of his mother, their home, their survival. He felt fear rise inside him like a wave. But then he looked at Rusty standing behind him. The horse's ears were pinned back, and a low growl of warning came from deep in his chest. Rusty was defending him. Isaac felt strength flow into him, a steady, warm courage. He met Bailey's stare without blinking. "He deserves to run," Isaac said, "and we're going to race." Bailey stared, shocked, then furious. He yanked his stallion around and rode away in a storm of dust. The next morning was race day, and nothing about it would go the way anyone expected. Race day rose hot and heavy over Willow Creek. The sun had barely cleared the horizon, but the heat already clung to the air like a wet blanket. People poured in from every road and trail, filling the dirt track with wagons, horses, dust, and noise. It felt like the whole county had shown up. Isaac stood beside Rusty, who now looked nothing like the broken ghost Bailey had given him. His coat shined like polished copper. His eyes were alert. His body carried new strength, but Isaac could still feel the tremble in his legs. Not from weakness, but from memory. The memory of pain. The memory of fear. "We can do this," Isaac whispered, resting his forehead against Rusty's. We have to. George Wells arrived and squeezed Isaac's shoulder. His voice was low and steady. Do not think about the crowd. Do not think about Bailey. Just you and the horse, son. Trust each other. Sarah Bailey stood near a wagon, half hidden. Her hands were pressed to her mouth. She looked terrified. Isaac gave her a small nod. She nodded back. Their secret had brought them here. Now everything depended on the next few minutes. The starting line was a wall of noise and dust and stomping hooves. 7 powerful horses stood ready, shiny coats, strong legs, fine saddles, riders with perfect posture. Isaac climbed onto Rusty's back without a saddle. He only had a rope rein and the bond he had built with the horse. People pointed and laughed. Evans brought his cripple again. Look at that runt of a horse. He'll be out before the first turn. Isaac felt the heat of embarrassment rising, but Rusty shifted beneath him, calm and steady. The horse flicked an ear back, as if telling Isaac he didn't care about the noise. Andrew Bailey stood on the judge's platform, arms crossed. His face was stone cold, his eyes locked on Isaac with a warning that chilled Isaac's blood. If he raced, his mother could lose everything. But Isaac couldn't go back now. Not after everything they had survived. Not after everything Rusty had fought through. The starter raised his pistol. Isaac closed his eyes for one heartbeat. Please, he whispered. Just stay with me. Quote. The gun fired. The gates swung open, and the world exploded. The other horses leapt forward in a wall of power and flying dirt. Rusty jumped too, but the noise hit him like lightning. He stumbled. His front legs nearly gave out. Isaac lurched forward, gripping Rusty's neck to stay on. They fell behind. Far behind. The crowd erupted in laughter. There it is! Get off the track, Evans! Rusty's stride was short and panicked. The limp returned. Isaac felt his heart fall. They were losing. Fast. Come on, Isaac begged, his voice cracking. You can do it, please! But Rusty wasn't running. He was remembering. Remembering the pain. Remembering the fear. Remembering the man who broke him. They reached the backstretch, nearly 20 lengths behind. Rusty's breathing was ragged. Isaac could feel him wanting to slow to a walk. The crowd's laughter faded into a dull roar. Isaac felt everything slipping away. Then he stopped fighting. He leaned forward and wrapped his arms around Rusty's neck. I know you're scared, he whispered. I know they hurt you. But that man isn't here. He can't touch you. Run for her, Stormdancer. Run for the one who loved you. Run for the horse you were born to be. Rusty's ears twitched. His stride steadied. Isaac felt something change, like a spark catching fire. Rusty's head lifted. His breathing deepened. The limp vanished. And then he ran. Not a trot, not a struggle, a run. A full, powerful gallop that shook the ground. The crowd went silent. Then a wave of shouts rose like a storm. Look at that! No way! He's flying! Rusty surged forward. He passed the last horse in seconds, then another, and another. Riders stared at Isaac with wide eyes as Rusty shot past them like a bullet. George Wells gripped the fence so tight his knuckles turned white. That's him, he whispered. That's Stormdancer. By the final turn, only 2 horses were ahead, Henderson's bay and Bailey's massive black stallion. The stallion's rider whipped it hard, desperate to keep the lead. Isaac leaned forward, his heart pounding. Go, Stormdancer, go! Rusty's muscles coiled and released like springs. He caught Henderson's horse and passed it. Now it was just the black stallion. The crowd screamed. Bailey stared, his face pale. Side by side, the chestnut and the giant black horse thundered down the home stretch. Every rider, every spectator, every child held their breath. Then Rusty did the impossible. He found another burst of speed. He stretched his neck forward. Isaac held on tight. Stormdancer crossed the finish line by a single nose. Silence. Then the crowd exploded. A roar of shock and joy rolled across the track. Isaac slid off Stormdancer, hugging his neck as tears spilled down his face. "You did it," he whispered. "You did it." George ran to him, laughing and crying. Sarah rushed forward and threw her arms around them both. Storm Dancer stood tall and proud, his coat shining in the Texas sun. Then the crowd parted. Andrew Bailey walked toward them. But he didn't look angry. He looked broken. And finally human. He reached out and touched Storm Dancer's muzzle with a shaking hand. The horse did not shy away. "I'm sorry," Bailey said, his voice thick with emotion. "My grief made me cruel. I didn't see what I was destroying." He looked at Isaac with tears in his eyes. "You healed what I tried to erase. You gave my wife's horse his spirit back. I owe you more than I can ever repay." He took a breath. "I want you and your mother to live on my ranch. I want you to train my horses. And if you'll allow it, I want to make things right." Isaac looked at Sarah. She nodded through her tears. He turned back to Bailey and gave a single, slow nod. And that was the beginning. Years later, the Bailey Ranch became the Storm Dancer Sanctuary, a place for broken horses to heal, a place where children learned to ride, a place built on hope. Storm Dancer lived out his years under the shade of a great willow tree, loved by everyone in Willow Creek. And when he passed, the whole town came to lay flowers beneath that tree. Because he wasn't just a horse, he was a miracle. He was proof that even the most broken heart can rise again.